Now, in the Mishnah Lam Gimel Amud Aleph, it said that when you prune the grapevines, you're allowed to prune both your grapevines and the grapevines of the Ani indiscriminately. I shouldn't say grapevines, the grape clusters of the Aniyim indiscriminately. And we said yesterday that the grapevines of Aniyim look different. The grape clusters of Aniyim look different than a regular grape cluster. Now, it's a regular grape cluster. You have grapes which grow out of the cluster like this. So it has what's called a ketef, which means it has a breadth, and has a netef, which means that there are grapes which fall off, which come down from the spine at the bottom. Okay, that's a regular grape cluster. The ketef of the cluster which goes to an ani, which is called an olula, has no ketef. Means it has no breadth, it has no shoulders, but rather all the grapes adhere directly to the spine, and also it has no netef. There are no grapes dropping down from the bottom of the cluster, from the bottom of the spine at the bottom. That's what there are no ketef and no netef, right? So the chayra, we know from a very early stage. We're in the 7th paragraph, right before Halacha A, just before. You know from a very early stage which grapes are going to go, which grape clusters are going to the ani, and which grape clusters are going to the everybody else. So maybe you shouldn't be allowed to prune the ani's grape clusters. So it says the Mishnah said you're allowed to. Actually, it said it's a machlokas. We said in the Mishnah that Rabbi Yehuda says you're allowed to, and Rabbi Meir says you're not allowed to. Okay, so the Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, let me find a few. Rabbi Yochanan, nearest muchlefes shitaso. It seems that there is a switch in shita, a switch in opinion between Rabbi Yehuda here and elsewhere. Because Rabbi Yehuda elsewhere holds Tamanu Omer Bein Shekach Bein Kach Loto Michal Goder. It says in another place that Rabbi Yehuda says that regardless, when you want to wet your field in the process of harvesting, you're allowed to wet your field, and you just take the stuff which belongs to the ani, put it on the fence for the ani to come and get it. So there you're allowed to wet the field indiscriminately. The Kol Marachain, and here he says, I'm sorry, no, there, here Rabbi Yehuda says that you are allowed to do it indiscriminately. You don't have to take care to save the anim's portion. And over there he says you have to save the anim's portion and put it on a fence where it won't get wet. So why the distinction? So it says the Gemara, there's a difference. Says the Gemara, mitokshu machon. Here, as a result of his having thinned out the grape clusters this year, the grapevines will make more grapes next year. So ever the ani has a vested interest in the anim have vested interest in the balabas pruning even their portion. V'amar afhacha. Let's say the same thing over there. Mitokshu marabta, since he wets the field during the harvest. It's going to produce more the next year. So he said there's no comparison. There, the next day, when it's a field, the next year you might plant vegetables, and vegetables are exempt from matnosanim. So therefore, over in that case, his making the field wet doesn't help the aniyim even in the long term, because who knows if the guy is going to grow grain in his field next year. However, here, where it's a grape orchard, right, a grape yard, what's it called? A vineyard. Thank you. Here it's a vineyard. So then, he's not going to switch it next year to something else, so therefore, his pruning this year will be a long-term investment for the benefit of the aniyim. Okay? That's why you're allowed to prune indiscriminately. Kerem Revai. Now, we're switching gears here. We're no longer talking about Leket Shiur Peah. We're talking about Kerem Revai, which means a vineyard in its 4th year, after the 3 years of Orla. Beishamri and Shammai says, Ein lo chomesh. When you redeem it, you don't have to tack on an added 5th. Vein lo biur, and you do not have to remove it from its value from your house. Now, what do we mean by that? We have a concept of Meiser Sheni. Every third year, you have to get rid of all the Meiser Sheni which you had with accumulated within the past 2 years, or the money thereof, and take it to Yerushalmi and eat it b'kedusha. Here, by Meiser Shabai, Kerem Ravai, Beis Shammai says there's no concept of biur. Beis Hillel says when you redeem Meiser Kerem Ravai, it's mamish like Meiser Sheni. You have to tack on a fifth in the redemption price, and also we say that it has biur every third and sixth year. You have to take it up to Yerushalayim with you. Beis Shammai says, since Kerem Ravai is not like Meiser Sheni, yesh lo peret v'yesh lo olulos, therefore you have to leave peret and olulos for the poor people. Vanim poim latzmon, and the poor people will redeem it for themselves. They also won't have to pay a Keren Chomish. Beis Hillel says, since Kerem Ravai is like Meiser Sheni, therefore you don't have to give anything to Aniyim, just like from Meiser Sheni you don't have to give to the Aniyim, and therefore you can press your entire field and make wine out of all the grapes thereof. There's no peret and olos in that case. Tani, we had a machlokas concerning our Mishnah. Rabbi Omer lo amru Beis Shammai ela b'shviyas. Rabbi says that Beis Shammai only made their statement during the Shemitah year. But that then Kerem Ravai has no chomesh and has no biur, etc., etc. But the rest of the 6 years of a Shemitah cycle, Beis Shammai says you do have to tack on an added fifth when you redeem it, and you also have to do biur on it. In other words, you have to get it out of your house every third and sixth year. In the opinion of this Tana, i.e. Rebbe, Lo lamdu neter ravai el meiser sheni. Neter ravai's parameters are derived from meiser sheni. Kemo de Tamar, and since that is the case, just like we say a meiser sheni b'shviz, there's no meiser sheni during Shemitah year. The Kava says similarly a neter ravai b'shviz. There's no neter ravai. Neter ravai is the same as Kerem Ravai, except one is in vineyards and one is in all other orchards. So too, there's no neter ravai b'shviz in the Shemitah year. As for if that's the case, if that's the case, there should be any kedusha for Kerem Ravai or Neter Ravai during the Shemitah year at all. Why? It doesn't have any kedusha. It says Mar kedusha me'elov lamdu. The kedusha is learned internally. How do we learn that internally? Because it says by Kerem Ravai or Neter Ravai, kodesh kilulim. It's kodesh and it's praiseworthy. Hareu kikodesh krenel, it's like that which is holy, concerning which we say the halal, meaning it's holy like bikurim, and therefore it is holy, and you have to redeem it, even though you don't have to add on a fifth, but it must be redeemed even during the Shemitah year. So as the Gemara, let's say it's mutter to an onein. In other words, it's not like Meiser Sheni, you let it be mutter to an onein. Says more, no, that's different. That's split out from bikurim. Tani kodesh. We learned just like Bikurim, since it's Kodesh, you can't give it to an Onein, to a person who's in mourning. So too, here it says Kodesh, Magichu Asalone, it's forbidden to an Onein. Yeah, Chayav Biur. So asking, well, okay, if that's the case, if you're learning it's like Meiser Sheni, so it should be Chayav in Biur. So it says, well, no. Begin to Rabbi Shimon point to Rabbi. Rabbi Shimon says Bikurim are exempt from biur, just like Bikurim are exempt from biur. So too, these are exempt from biur. In other words, you don't have to remove it. Now, this removal, which we're speaking about over here, is talking about again the third and sixth year. So in the third and sixth year, it says that you have to redeem you have to be mavar, you have to get rid of all the backed up value or fruit for Meiser Sheni or for that matter Meiser Oni, but that is not true about Bikurim, and so too, but it's not true about Nekerem or Neter Ravai as well. Says so if it's not bona fide Meiser Sheni like during Shemitah, so during Shemitah will let you should be able to redeem it before it's cut off from the ground. Even when it's b'chuber l'karka. We know Meiser Sheni can only be redeemed when it's already severed from the ground. But if this is not like Meiser Sheni, at least during Shemitah, so you should be able to redeem it even when it's connected to the ground, the Gemara does not answer the question. The Gemara goes on to cite a differing opinion. Tanya Rav Shimon Gamliel says, Echad Shvi'is. Whoops, doesn't say Omer here. Sorry. Tanya Rav Shimon Gamliel says, Echad Shvi'is, Vechad Shar Shnesh. We're on the top of Lam Daled Omer Aleph now. Both Shvita and any other of the 6 years, Beishamri Mein Lo Chomesh, regardless, there's no fifth tacked on. Vein Lo Bir, you don't have to eradicate it every third and sixth year. Al Daitin Dodin Tani concerned this Tana holds Lo Long Dum Netarvai Maitzah Sheni Kol Ikar. Netarvai is not learned from Maitzah Sheni at all, even in the other 6 years. Me'ata, if that's the case, that's Gemara Al Yelo Kedusha. How you know that it's Kodesh altogether? Again, we say Kedushasa Me'elov Lomdu. It's Kedusha, it's learned out from its own source. Kodesh Shilulim, because it says Kodesh Shilulim. Hareo Kodesh, it's like the holy stuff. Shekoyin Love Esahim, which you read a Halal, no, it's like Bikurim. V'yei Mutter Lo, and then why is it not Mutter for a mourner? Tani Kodesh Shilulim. The fact it says Kodesh Shilulim, Magichu also alone, it has that degree of Kedusha, which has to do with praising God with joy, which bars it from being Mutter to a mourner. V'yei Chayiv B'Giur, let it be Chayiv and Biur, just like Bikurim or Chayiv and Biur. Begin Rabbi Shimon Poiter of Biur, Shimon exempts Biur. V'yipat, the Mechuber L'Karka, says it doesn't require bona fide redemption of Magzah Sheni, let it be redeemed even when it's connected to the ground. Again, the Gemara does not answer that question.
This question of Mechuber troubles me because I'm not sure that there's anything comparable to that in terms of maybe mafresh or whether you hold osir that can be done, that something is Mechuber L'Karka.
There is no precedent.
Right.
Right. So what?
So it's a strange question.
Yeah, no, it's not so strange because Bikurim can't be redeemed. Yet this is not like Meiser Sheni. So obviously it's this Kerem Ravai is not like Bikurim. But according to Zapin, either during Shemitah, according to Rebbe, or the entire 7 years, according to Shengalil, it's not like Meiser Sheni either. So we need something in the middle.
Separate category.
Yeah. A super category which doesn't, well, not a super category, a third category which doesn't fall into any of the two pre-existing categories. So you're right, so it's kind of arbitrary, but the bottom line is you want to posit that separate category, we don't come to any resolution. Rabbi Zeir boy kumi Rabbi Yavo. Rabbi Zeir asked for Yavo. Minayin shuton chilu. How do we know that, actually, boy Yerushalmi doesn't always mean he asked the question. Sometimes he means he posed a statement. So he said, which I think is the case here. How do we know it requires chilul? Kodesh hilulim, because it says that the camera provides kodesh hilulim, and we read it kodesh chilulim with a ches, because lo mitzmanin rabbanim ben hey leches. The rabbis didn't differentiate between hey and ches; they're interchangeable. So therefore, kodesh chilulim teaches it's susceptible to redemption. Tani Rabbi Yevu Bar Nagri Kami Rabbi Yevu Bar Nagri learned in front of Rabbi Kami Rabbi Law in front of Rabbi Law, right? That's a big throw off in the Yerushalmi. You always have to remember that where it says low, it might not necessarily mean low. Sometimes it's Rabbi Law. Okay, that was his name. So Rabbi Yevu Bar Nagri learned in front of Rabbi Law to Rabbi Shmuel, the following Rosh name Rabbi Shmuel. It says, a person redeems his meiser, he has to add on chomesh. Prat l'man l'netar avai, shemus v'lo chomesh. So Beis Shammai learns that it says only a meiser you add on at fifth, not on netar avai. What does Beis Hillel learn? He went over and learned in front of him a different pasuk, shtei gulos. It said the shtei gulos saying there are two gulos, two redemptions. Chad l'maiser, echas l'maiser sheni. Says gula twice, once for maiser sheni. V'achas netarvai, the netarvai also redeemed as well. Tamot today we learned over there. Rabbi Lomer ein l'nochri kam ravai, and here the very important addition in the Pnei Moshe and all the other mefarshim b'Surya. Orlan chutzlart is also Rabbi Isai. You're aware of that? You know something is Orla? You have a fruit tree?
No, you mentioned it in Bodley.
Oh. But Orla is also in Chutzlart. If you have a fruit tree in your backyard, it's also for the first 3 years. If you know Goy has a fruit tree in his backyard, it's also for the first 3 years as well. The only difference between Eretz Yisrael and Chutzlart is the halacha of Safek Orla. Safek Orla on Eretz Yisrael is Aser, Safek Orla and Chutzlart is Mutter. Remeklin Spekos of Orla. However, Since there's orlo to chutz la'aretz, therefore it stands to reason there's netter ravai also to chutz la'aretz. Right? Says the Gemara, no. That would be a mistaken assumption on your part. Says the Gemara, where am I? It should be. In Surya and Chutz La'aretz there is no camera vibe for a goy. Chachamim Yeshalom say there is. Rabbi Elazar said Kini Masnisin. This is the way to read our Mishnah. And this brisa here. Ein Lanochi camera vibe kolikar. No Nochi is no camera vibe at all in Surya. Rabbi Amar Bun Kame Rabbi Zera. Rabbi said they asked for Rabbi Zera. B'Shem Rabbi Lezer, and Rabbi Lezer asked you to Rabbi Yehuda K'Beis Shammai. Is it not true that Rabbi Yehuda is going to Beis Shammai? How so? Because Al Daiti to Rabbi, according to the way you explained it, or according to the way Rabbi explained it, Kamad Beis Shammai Omer Lo Lomdu El Neter Ravai Eli Meiser Sheni. We only learn Neter Ravai from Meiser Sheni. Kamad Tamar, that so just like we concluded, a Meiser Sheni b'Shvius. Right? That's what we concluded before that says no Meiser Sheni and Shvius. Therefore, the Kavasah ain Neter Ravai b'Shvius is no Neter Ravai b'Shvius as well. Cain, so here we must say that's logic. Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda lo lomdu Neter Ravai le Meiser Sheni. You must learn Neter Ravai from Meiser Sheni. How so? That Ma Kamad Tamar ain Meiser Sheni b'Surya. Just like there's no Meiser Sheni in Syria, the Kavaseh must have extrapolated from that and said, hey, Neter Ravai b'Surya, that there's no Neter Ravai in Syria as well. So there, Rabbi Yehuda says no Neter Ravai in Syria. That's like Beis Shammai, who said that everything is learned out from Meiser Sheni. Just like there's no Meiser Sheni in Shemitah, just so too there's no Neter Ravai in Chutz La'aretz. Okay? So it says the Gemara, Kimad Tamar, just like there's no Meiser Sheni in Chutz La'aretz, so too there's no Neter Ravai in Chutz La'aretz. Says the Gemara, Omar Lei, so he said to them, Omar Luhon, he said to them, Chamei ma Omar, be careful, look at what you're saying. What did Beis Shammai say? Beis Shammai says, Omar, lo Omar, ela ein lo chomesh ve'ein lo biur, that there's no chomesh nor any biur by Meiser Sheni, by Neter Ravai. Hashar dvarim, but anything else, including Syria, yeshlo, it has. In other words, we learn out from Meiser Sheni very limited parameters. What we don't learn out, in fact, perhaps we don't learn out anything about whether it's Noeg in Syria or not. Maybe that's not learned out from Meiser Sheni. So it's an interesting thing the way the Gemara breaks it down here. Again, Chamei Ma'amar, be careful that would you see what he said. Lomar ein lo chomesh ve'ein lo I apologize. I think I translated that wrong. Let me check on that. No, I think you say that there is in Syria Meiser Sheni, it's just that there's no biur and no chomesh. No, this is the pshat. Okay. That's not true either. Says where the Kavanoki explains. It says, Chamei Ma'amar, see what Beis Shammai said. Beis Shammai said that I lost my place. Chamei Ma'amar, Lo Amar El Ein Lo Chomesh Ve'ein Lo Biur. Beis Shammai only said there's no chomesh nor any biur for Neter Ravai, but they held that Neter Ravai does have kedusha. You have to redeem it. You just don't have to pay a chomesh. You don't have to biur on it, but it is holy. So it's there too. Rabbi Yehuda who holds there's no neter avai in Chutzla in Syria is not the equivalent sheet of Beis Shammai, because according to Beis Shammai it should be holy, just with certain deficits in its holiness. But Rabbi Yehuda is stating that there is no holiness to neter avai or kerem avai in Syria at all. That's not like Beis Shammai. That's a different theme. He's saying that the Beis Shammai there should be kedusha. Not a chomesh, not beer, but there should be kedusha. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there's no kedusha whatsoever.
Is Syria is equivalent to Chutz La'aretz? There's some sheet.
Right, Syria is above Chutz La'aretz. But it's kav chomer. If in Syria there's no neter avai, so certainly Chutz La'aretz is not going to be neter avai. Okay, says the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda says, as we said before, there's the guy doesn't have kerem avai in Syria. Shmuel bar Ami asked, "Lo Beis Shammai amru lo Beis Shammai say lo do neter avai Eli Meiser Sheni." Then we learn neter avai Meiser Sheni. Kimad the Tamar, like you say, a Meiser Sheni b'Shvius, just like you said by Meiser Sheni, that there's no Meiser b'Shvius. Udakavosai, and similarly you learned out a neter avai b'Shvius. There's no fourth year planting in Shemitah. Udakavosai, and so too Shlishis v'Shishis, the third and sixth year. So you should say that just because they have no Meiser Sheni, they also shouldn't have neter avai. In other words, if it happens to be that the fourth year of your vineyard coincides with the third year of the Shemitah cycle, or the sixth year, let's say there's no neter avai in that year. Just like there's no Meiser Sheni that year, there should be no neter avai. So it says the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi says, Shlishis v'Shishis is the third and sixth year of the cycle. Even though there's no Meiser Sheni in those years, nonetheless yesh by Meiseroni. They do have Meiseroni. Meiseroni does not supplant Meiser Sheni. It subs for Meiser Sheni. Okay? So, as opposed to Shvius, during Shemitah, there's no Meiser whatsoever. So, therefore, Shemitah year, we say that just like there's no Meiser Sheni, no Meiseroni, there's no neter avai. But the third and sixth year, even though there's no Meiser Sheni, there is Meiseroni, and therefore, in those years, we say that you do have neter avai regardless. Says the Gemara, Haifa. The man comes from Haifa. He's not identified any further than that. Shas Rabbi Yehuda asked Rabbi Yehuda. We said lo do neter avai Meiser Sheni. We only learn neter avai from Meiser Sheni. Kimad the time like we said, a Meiser Sheni b'Suya. Since it says no Meiser Sheni in Syria. Udakavos say similar a neter avai b'Suya. There's no neter avai in Syria as well. The Kavos say, let's say the same thing in the following case. Out of left field. Hypertext here. Lote to trumas toda b'midbar. Let's say that in the midbar they never gave truma from the toda. Now what's the truma from the toda?
Thanksgiving offering. It's a personal deal.
Right, but how many breads were there?
2?
40. How many went to the Kohen?
10. 30.
Okay.
14.
Boo.
14.
4. 110. It's learned out from Trumas Meiser. Trumas Meiser is 1 out of 10 goes from the Levi to the Kohen. So to Trumas Toda is 1 out of 10. So out of 40, you give 4 to the Kohen. So ask the Gemara, if there's a linkage drawn, you know what, let's see the same thing over there. Just, since there's a linkage drawn between the Truma of Toda and Trumas Meiser, right? So the Kavase lo lomdu Trumas Toda el Trumas Meiser. So let's say just like ain't Trumas Meiser in Midbar, there's no Trumas Meiser in the Midbar, how could there be? There was no, they didn't own any land from which to take off Trumas Meiseros. So too, the Kavase lo te Trumas Toda Midbar, maybe they didn't take off the 1 challah, the 4 challahs out of 40, and give to the Kohen in the Midbar. In other words, once you're drawing parallels between subjects, let's draw that parallel as well. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yosef says, Lo londu meno l'shiurin. There, the Gzeira Shava, between Trumas Toda and between Trumas Meiser was only done in terms of shiurim, not for anything further than that. Tani Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, so they did take Truma and Toda off in the midbar. Tani Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon said, Omer, Loni Schai V'Sol B'Netar Vai, Am Yisrael is only Chai B'Netar Vai, El Achar Ba'as Rishona, after the 14 years of Kivshum, which they conquered. I'm sorry, Achar Ba'as Rishona, until after 14 years. Sheva Shekivshu, the 7 years that they conquered, the Sheva Shechukun, the 7 years that divide up Eretz Yisrael. As long as they haven't divided up fully, there was no Netar Vai. Says the Gemara, on Rav Chisda said, Asya the Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda, that which Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda said that the one Chayav Netar Vai goes, B'shitas Rabbi Yehuda Avui, in his father's opinion. Kamar Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Lo Lamdu Netar Vai and Meiser Sheni. Just like Rabbi Yehuda said, we only learn Netar Vai from Meiser Sheni. Kamar the Tamar, like we said, Kamar the Tamar, like we say, Ein Ma Meiser Sheni El Achar Ba'as Rishona, that they didn't have to be Meiser Sheni till after those 14 years because they were still dissettled. So too, the Kavase, so too Rabbi Yosef said, similarly, Ein Netar Vai El Achar Ba'as Rishona. There's no Netar Vai till after the 14 years in which they conquered and divided up Eretz Yisrael.
He puts in Syria here.
I don't know why he does that.
I know, that does make sense.
Yeah. Boo. Second boo of the evening. Because Syria was only conquered by David and Melech much later. No good. So it says the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi said, V'hu b'shitas b'no. Wait a minute. Does he go on the sheet, does Rabbi Yehuda go on the sheet of his son? Surya Lambda, Surya Lambda Miudalid. Can we learn that Syria from the 14 years? In Yudalid Shana one second. The father said that we learned the 14 years. What did Rabbi Yosef said? Rabbi Yosef is one derived 14 years. And Rabbi Yehuda's father is the one who said about Syria. Yeah. 1 second. Well, this is the way to read it. Rabbi Yossi said, "V'hu b'shitas b'no." Does he go in his son's shita? Now, this is not Rabbi Yossi who we're talking about. It's very confusing very often in the mix of names. Rabbi Yossi is an Amora, and he's commenting. Rabbi Yehuda, the father said. Rabbi Yossi Amora is commenting. Rabbi Yehuda, the father said that there's no Netar Vai in Syria. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, the son, said there's no Netar Vai during the 14 years of the dividing up Eretz Yisrael. We said that there's a linkage there. Rabbi Yossi holds like Rabbi Yehuda's father. Just like Rabbi Yehuda's father learned there's no Meiser Sheni in Syria because there's no Netar Vai in Syria because we learned out from Meiser Sheni. So too Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda's son holds there's no Netar Vai in the 14 years of dividing up Eretz Yisrael because also served Meiser Sheni which didn't exist at the time. However, it says the Gemara, V'hu b'shitas b'no. What about the opposite way? Surya Lameida Miudalid. Can Rabbi Yehuda's halacha that there's no Netar Vai in Syria be extrapolated from the halacha that there's no Netar Vai in the 14 years? Says the Gemara, in yes.
Netar Vai, anyways.
What?
What's Netar Vai?
Netar Vai is the 4th year that all the crops are holy, like Meiser Sheni. Okay? Says more. I'm not sure. I'm still not sure if I'm getting this right here. Just a second.
What does Rashi mean here? There's much of some nations.
I have a problem with the gears here. I have a problem with the gears. I know what he's trying to say, but I can't explain it inside. I can explain it outside. Maybe then we can use a sledgehammer and fit it in. What he's saying is like this: the 14 years we're in Eretz Yisrael. Syria is outside Eretz Yisrael. So Rabbi Yehuda's makeup by Syria might not be makeup by the 14 years. Rabbi Yehuda's makeup by the 14 years, that he certainly is going to be makeup on Syria, right? But because Syria is only chayim in things to Rabbanan, right? Or it's not the Raisa. For 14 years in Eretz Yisrael, you might be chayim to Raisa. So Rabbi Yehuda, the son who holds you not chayim in the 14 years, certainly holds like his father that in Syria are not chayim. But it's not necessarily true the reverse. Rabbi Yehuda, the father who holds you not chayim neteravai in Chutzlaretz, i.e. in Syria, might well hold during the 14 years that they were conquering Eretz Yisrael, they were chayiv. And during that time, in Neteravai. Again, because the 14 years are more severe than Syria. Because they took place in the land of Israel, those 14 years which they conquered the land of Israel and divided it up. So I'm not sure to read inside. Now let's see if we can fit it inside. Says the Gemara, Vu b'shitas beno. Do you think Rabbi Yehuda's greatest son, Syria, Surya lemeidam Yudalit? If you know, okay, now I can fit it in. Once I said it out, now I can fit it in. Surya lemeidam Yudalit. If you know that Yudalit is exempt, like Rabbi Yehuda holds, you certainly know that Syria is exempt. So if Rabbi Yehuda is makel on Yudalit Shona, he's certainly going to makel on Syria like his father. However, Ein Yudalit Shona lemeidam Surya. However, Rabbi Yehuda, the father, was makel in Syria. He's not necessarily going to learn out to the 14 years based on that, because the 14 years might be more chomer. Why? Because those 14 years took place in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, good. Says the Gemara, Ksiv says, Ubashana chamishis tochus pirio. Yankel just asked, let's go through it again. The first 3 years the tree is growing, it's Orla. The 4th year it's quasi-holy, like Meiser Sheni, that's Neta Revai or Kerem Revai, right? That's Revai is 4th year, right? The 5th year, it's scot-free. You can eat it without any taxes. Well, there's always taxes. There's Truma Smeiser, all that kind of stuff. But you don't have the special qualities to it. It says the Gemara, Rabbi Yosef, Harehu Kimosi Peres Chamishis al Peres Shishis. I'm sorry, Peres Revius. He's adding on the 4th year to the 5th year. It's linking the two together. Ma Peres Chamishis L'Bailim, just like the Peres of the 4th year, of the 5th year, go to the owner. A Peres Revius L'Bailim, so to the Peres of the 4th year, go to the owner as well. So from this we derive that if that's the case, that they're considered to be, even in the 4th year, the money of the owner. They're not hefker. Somebody else can't walk into the field. Hagam, that the entire field has the kedusha of Meiser Sheni, nobody else can take them. They belong to the owner. Just like the 5th year's crops belong to the owner, so to these 4th, they just have a din of kedusha riding on top of them. Says Rabbi Zera and Rabbi Yossi b'shem Rabbi Yobos and Rabbi Yochanan, Asya the Rabbi Yossi Aglili, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Aglili holds like Rabbi Yehuda. What is that? Kimad Rabbi Yehuda also son of Chasov. Just like Rabbi Yehuda said that Neter Vai is your own property. Can Rabbi Yossi Aglili also son of Chasov? The Rabbi Yossi Aglili also said it's your own property. Rabbi Yirmiyah boy Kumi Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Yirmiyah asked in front of Rabbi Zera. Kidivrei Mishu also so kinechosov. Or any payos can revise like yours. Maybe it should be chayv and meiser. After all, anytime you have crop, you're chayiv and meiser. If netter avai is your crop, it should be chayiv and meiser as well, right? You have to give meisers on it. Says the Gemara Amar Leis, they said, Kai do Amar Rabbi Shimon Levi. This is like Rabbi Shimon Levi said. Do Amar Rabbi Yoav and Shimon Levi. Lo sof tovar halacha zu. Not only this halacha, el kol halacha, rather any halacha, shirofefes bebasin, which is weak in court, meaning the basin does not know how to paskin in it. Ve'ena te'odeh mativa. You don't know what the quality, in other words, what the halacha is in this case. Seirei matzibur noe. Go on and see what the tzibur does. Unhog and do the same thing. This concept is called in the Bavli Puk Chazei My Amadvar. Whenever you don't know halacha, go on and see what people are doing. Because Hashem would not let Am Yisrael go astray in a massive way. That was in the good old days, right? But since that was the case, so therefore go see what the people are doing, and it can do that. Right?
We don't even know what that means.
Right.
Going astray, we don't even know what it means.
We're so far astray, we don't know what astray is. Right.
Bobby doesn't have that attitude, right?
No, it doesn't.
Isn't Bobby usually afraid of what people think?
No. No. Here we're taking a survey, seeing what people do in order to determine the halacha. It's a mystical thing. Whatever Am Yisrael do, like 1 million Frenchmen can't be wrong. So 600,000 Jews, if they're all doing the same thing, they can't be wrong. So he said, go out and see what people do. We see that the tzibur doesn't take off meisers. Says the Gemara, no, that doesn't do me any good. Rabbi Mana, Ilu Nemar Beis Shammai. We're going Beis Shammai now. Beis Hillel holds that Neter Avai is Kodesh. It's not yours. And we baskin like Beis Hillel. That's why we don't take meisers of Neter Avai. My shiur is according to Beis Shammai holds that it's yours. And therefore there's no biur and there's no chomesh. My shiur is according to him when you have to take off meisers. What good does it do me to go observe the nation? Who's the nation following? Beis Hillel. I can't determine anything about Beis Shammai Shita. I want to determine Beis Shammai that my Neter Avai is yours. Because Rabbi Yehuda holds like Beis Shammai. You're telling me to go look at what people do according to Beis Hillel doesn't do me any good. Okay? So the Yeshua Tzibur also Beis Shammai. Rabbi Avun said, nonetheless, I'll figure it out for you. Plum Lam do Neter Avai Meiser Sheni. Where they learn out Neter Avai only from Meiser Sheni. Come on, the Tamari Meiser Sheni Chayv Meiser, just like Meiser Sheni. You don't take off Meiser Sheni. The Kabbalah, so to similarly, a Neter Avai Chayv Meiser. Neter Avai is not Chayv Meiser. Rabbi Ba and Rabbi Chia both said Shem Rabbi Yochanan. Isas Meiser Sheni Yerushalmi, because the dough of Meiser Sheni in Yerushalayim. Cried Meir, corner and Meir holds Meiser Sheni is never really yours. It always belongs to Hashem. So therefore, if you need a dough in Yerushalayim, Meiser Sheni grain, P'turim min ha'chala, it's exempt from challah. Because it's not your grain. It's Hashem's grain. Rabbi Yehuda, like Rabbi Yehuda said, it's your money. Chavis b'chala, it is chayiv b'chala. Rabbi Yehuda said, Lo amru be'el b'Yerushalayim. That's only Yerushalayim, it's considered to be yours, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Abo b'gvulim, but outside Yerushalayim, when you haven't yet brought the grain to Yerushalayim, it's not yet yours, low, and it's not considered to be yours if you make a dough out of it, improperly, as it were. So in that case, it's not chayiv b'chala. Says more Rabbi Ba Bar Kohen Boy Kumi Rabbi Yossi asked in front of Rabbi Yossi, if you hold that Neter Avai is chayiv and peret, that you have to leave the grapes out in the field, which you forget for the ani. So according to him, Mao shetei chayiv chala is chayiv and chala. Amar Leis, he said, "V'lo Rabbi Yehuda." Isn't this whole concept like Rabbi Yehuda? In other words, who's the one who holds that Neter Avai is yours? Rabbi Yehuda. So it's irrelevant. Because we just want to say before that Rabbi Yehuda holds like Beis Shammai. They both hold Meiser Sheni and Neter Avai is yours, but everybody else holds Neter Avai is not yours. If it's not yours, if you make a dough out of it, it's not chayiv and challah. Okay, simple enough. Says the Mishnah further. Kerem shekulu olulos. The halacha zavav. Very basic question. The entire kerem is made up of these funny grape clusters which grow the aniyim. Rabbi Elazar said since it's all aberrant, the whole thing is one big mutant, so you give it all to the Baal Bais. Rabbi Akiva Omer Lani, Rabbi Akiva says close to the poor people. Rabbi Elazar says, wait a minute, it says Kisif Tzor Lo Solel. It says when you harvest, do not take the olalos. Imain Batzir Olos Minayin. If that means if there is no batzir, if there's no harvest, how do you have olos? In other words, we understand that when you harvest for yourself, then you leave the olos for the ani. But if they're all olos, you're leaving them all to the ani. There's nothing for yourself. That defeats the whole pasuk. There's got to be batzir plus olos, not completely olos. It makes no sense. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Akiva says, "B'karmecha lo solel." Your kerem you cannot be olel. I feel kula olos, even if it's entirely olos, you can't take any away. You can, if that's because you'll have to go to the ani. Okay, lama demar kisivsar lo solel. So if that's the case, why does it say pasuk which implies that there must be some harvest for you in order that you should be chayiv in olos? It says more, Rabbi Akiva, that's something completely different. It just says it means ein aniyim ba'olos kol lebatzir. So aniyim cannot go down and lay their stake to the olos prior to the harvest. Says the Kavah, so you made batzir, made parrot. Ask the Gemara if there's no, let's say the same thing, well, I don't know if it's a question, it seems to be a statement. I think it's just a statement. Kavah saw similarly the same, ain batzir, ain parrot, there's no parrot until you begin to harvest. But once you begin to harvest, that which slips out of your hand goes saniyim. But prior to beginning to harvest, there is no such concept. But says the Gemara again, kavos main batzir main parrot achie batzir until it's batzir. But tzad by batzir achlostan chaya low. One second. Timeout on the field here. Got it. Okay. This is the way to punctuate it. It says the Gemara, the Kavasim came back to the beginning where the Kavasim ain't batzir and parrot, actually a batzir b'tzad batzir. It's a question. There's no batzir. There's no parrot as well. It says more, no, actually a batzir b'tzad batzir, because it has to be that there's a, it has to be that it's written. The word olos is written next to batzir. It has to be that there's written batzir in the concept in order to say that there must be harvest for yourself at the same time that they're matanos taluanim. But it doesn't say the word batzir in the by parrot. By parrot, it just says that you should leave parrot.
What's parrot?
The stuff you forget out in the field.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Right, so there, hypothetically speaking, you're going to have parrot before you start harvesting at all, if you dropped or forgot the first few kernels or grapes, because there it doesn't say that there must be batzir before you start having olos. There's no such precondition made there before you have parrot.
Yeah. There has to be physical act of batzir.
Yeah, you have to harvesting, but you don't have to have any shiur batzir before you start having parrot.
What's olos?
Olos are the funny looking clusters. Okay, parrot is what you forget.
Yeah.
Parrot is like shircha. Yes.
Whenever you don't snip, you know that.
Or it falls out of your hand when you're snipping. Okay, that's parrot. Olos is the funny looking clusters which is unique halacha on two grapes. Okay, so says the Gemara, olos minayin, achlosan chaya lo. What happens if all the normal grapes were eaten by were eaten by wild animals? So then you don't get to keep the olos because there was real harvest. How you didn't get it? That's your tough luck. But there was real stuff to harvest, and therefore the rest of it goes Saniyim. The Kamu Ba'atz here, how much is the minimum butter which you have to take in order for Aniyim to get for themselves? Says the Gemara, the Beis Shiloh, in the house of Shiloh, they said, Shlosha Eshkolos, 3 clusters, Shemos and Revia, which make Revia. That's the minimum that you have to get in order to then give Olos to the honey. For Rabbi Akiva, says the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva, Mekayim Trei Kroi. He managed to deal with both psukim. Kisiv Tzor Lo Solel, meaning that when you're engaged in the act of harvest, do not leave olos, and then the other part, do not take the olos, and then the other part which says the karmachol lo solo, meaning that even if the entire karam is full of olos, leave it to the oni. But ma mekayim Rebbe Lezer v'karmachol lo solo. Sounds like even there's no harvest for yourself, don't take the olos away, leave them for the oni. Says more, no, it means something else. According to Rebbe Lezer, Shlotar, you shouldn't say, "Oh, vein lanim olos kon labotir." You might say, since the according to Rabbi Eliezer, even according to Rabbi Eliezer, the aniyim don't get olos until after the harvest begins. So I might say that the Baal Bas can chap a rind and grab the olos before the aniyim get a right to it. That's what I have to say. The karmachol lo solel, even prior to the actual harvest, you're not allowed to take olos for yourself. You have to leave them out on the vines for the aniyim to come and take when the time for shiperet comes for them to collect. Says the Mishnah further, halacha zayin, hamakdish is karmach lo nodu olos. If you were consecrated your karam to be holy before the olos became apparent, then ein olos anim. The olos grew under Hekdish's jurisdiction. They don't go to the poor people. Hekdish not mechuyev in this mitzvah. Mishanodu olos, if you were makdish your vineyard after the olos became apparent, then olos anim, the anim already merited the olos. Rabbi Yosef yitnu schar gidul Hekdish. It's true that they didn't get it, but they have to pay for growing costs to the Hekdish because they grew under Hekdish's watch. When you have shikha by a grapevine which is on a trellis, in other words, it's being supported and it's standing up from the ground. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, whenever you pass far enough in front of it that you can't stretch your hand back and grab from it. Uvraglios, when it's a grapevine which is growing on the ground, it's not supported, so then, or even earlier, it becomes peret. If you forgot it, mishiavri mena, the minute you pass it, you forgot it, then already you can't turn back and take it. Even if you can still stretch your hand back and grab onto it. You can't do that, you have to leave it for the audience. Tamotinim, we learned over there. Matirim becomes yoshel hektish. One is allowed to use the twigs of hektish to make ties. Make bundles. Now, ask the Gemara, how can you say this? Don't you agree? We have this in the Bible this morning. Don't you agree that stuff which grows out of hektish is also? So how are you allowed to use that? Now, material gives hektish. The truth is, I left out a not important detail, but nonetheless significant detail. This is done in Yericho. They used to use the twigs from a hektish tree to wrap up bundles. So that's what I do. It's how the gedulim are hektish. Says more of Amru Hain. The people in Hektish in Yericho said, our forefathers, when they consecrated these trees, like Tishu Elakoros, they only marked the actual beams themselves, Bimnei Baliegro, because of they're afraid that otherwise some ruffians would come and, abscond with the trees. However, the additional trees which grew subsequently, they're not hektish. Again, Bimnei Baliegro Shuboim and Noldi Mosomizor would take them violently. Says the Gemara, okay, let's analyze what these people in Yericho say. Ma Rabban and Sarvi, what do the people in Yericho, the rabbis in Yericho hold? Sarvi Meimar. Says the Gemara, Koros Uperos were the original are we talking about a tree where they're both beams? The koros are the beams, which are the logs, and peros fruits, additional branches. So in that case, if we're talking about a tree where they're... One second.
They did what they wanted in the Reichel.
No, but that's not true. Here we have here the Chazal is sympathetic for them.
The palm trees, they played around on Pesach, Erev Pesach, instead of the Korban Pesach.
Yeah, okay, but this the rabbis agreed with. So now the kasha is like this: Maraban and Sarvi Mema. What's their head there? Koros uperos. Is it because of the koros that the koros themselves were not kadosh? Why? Because they only did it as a ruse to keep it away from the ruffians, or is it the peros they matter because gidule hektish and an hektish? With what was their underlying svara? Sounds like they're employing both. Both the svara that the hektish wasn't a bona fide hektish, and the svara that the gidulim are not hektish. Which one is it? Says the Gemara, it is both. Says the Gemara, filu tema korosu peros. Even if you're going to say that the original hektish was legit, and they consecrated both the beams and the peros, that's only the koros at the time hikdishu. Well, peros, the peros is subsequently lo hikdishu. The peros of afterwards, they weren't makdish. Okay, fine. Tzricha l'rabbanim, but this kash we have to ask on the rabbis of Yericho. Hamakdish sada ilon. It's if somebody consecrates the sada ilon, ma'u sheishar lo bigdulein. Is he allowed to retain to himself the right for that which grows afterwards? Okay, it sounds like for the Anshe Yericho, you are allowed to retain it. You mean makdish a tree and not the stuff which grows later on. So the Gemara asks, is that true? So it says, let's turn out for our Mishnah. It says, Mishanodu Olos, once the Ololos are identifiable in the tree, and somebody, the Baalbas is makdish the tree, Olos Anim, he's not makdish Olos, the Olos go to the poor people. So here we see explicitly, from the fact that the Olos are to go to the poor people, that the concept is that you get to retain ownership in the growth for afterwards. So doesn't want to know here it's different. Shani here it's different. Sheino the makdish tov sheino shelo. You can't be makdish something which is not yours. The olos are not yours to be makdish. There are the onis. Enoch nami when you're makdish even that which grows. But here you can't be makdish olos because the olos don't belong to you, the balabas. They belong to the anim. Says more fine.
If something comes in the future, you can't be makdish. There's the concept of
I don't know if here it's Davish Shalom because here it's saying which is going to be the growth of the tree, and it could be you could be makdish ilon lepeirosov. So that's the kasha. Can you be makdish ilon and not be makdish lepeirosov? So here the Gemara wants to say that you can, because here the olos are not hektish. The Gemara says no, this is not a raya, because here the Baalbas had no right to be makdish olos. They're not his.
So I guess you're saying to me that because the peros represent are so tied in with the Ilan itself.
They're not so tied. Let me read the next line and see if make it clear. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, I feel low no do olos, you are olos lanim. Even if the olos are not apparent, let the olos go anim. It says in our Mishnah, if the olos are not yet apparent, they go to they don't go to the poor people, they go to hektish. Why is that? Let the olos be the anim. Shani, that's different. Shu kerem hektish, because by the time the olos grow, in that case it was already the kerem of hektish. So Gemara is really taking this far into account. The Gemara is saying, look, the only way olos can become a kodesh is if they haven't grown yet, and I makdish the capacity of the tree to grow olos. And it says, well, that's true. In that case, the olos are kadosh. If there are no olos on the tree at the time I was makdishing, and I was makdishing as such, so then the olos which come afterwards, they don't belong to the oni, because they grew on hekdish's watch. The only time olos can be excluded from hekdish is if there already was some forerunner, at least, or an immature state of olos on the tree at the time I was makdashit, because then those olos remain independent. So we have no right. That whole case over there is not relevant to us, because we don't know anything about Gedulei Hekdesh from that case. Because either there it actually existed at the time we were makdashit, or it didn't exist at all. But the question is, over there by the olos, not one of whether I can retain the right to Gedulei Hekdesh, because if they're already there, they're not mine. It's not me retaining it. I can't be makdashit because I'm not an oni. It's his stuff, not mine. So therefore, I have no raya as to whether a person can, on his own tree, where every component of it is his, he can retain for himself the right of the parents to grow afterwards. But again, we're not talking about the fruit as a davish lo bolo. We're talking about the rights in the tree as something which is a renewable resource which can create things later on. Okay? Am I making myself somewhat clear? Okay. Says more further. Shani again. Shani Yishu Kerem Hekdesh. By that time, it's going to Kerem have Hekdesh. Because the time like that, we learned Hanotea Kerem Hekdesh. If somebody plants a Kerem on behalf of Hekdesh, there's no mitzvahs. Only human beings have mitzvahs such as Orla, Netar, Avai, and Kiperet and Olos, not Hekdesh. So it's what I mean Orla, I mean Ravai, Umina Olos. One exception is V'chai B'shmis. A field of Hekdesh is Chai B'shmita. Says more, why is that? Rabbi Zeir B'Shem Rabbi Yonah says, V'shavta Oret Shabbos LaHashem. The land must rest the Sabbath unto God. Davashu LaHashem, even so which is unto God, even Hekdesh, Shvi Yitzchol Olav Shmita devolves on it. Rabbi Chia Bar Abba Boy Kumi Rabbi Mona. Rabbi Chia Bar Abba asked for Rabbi Mona. L'ochlo lo pidyon. What about some stuff which goes during that Shemitah year in the Hekdesh field? Can you eat it without redeeming it? Yeah, sure. Can't. Sheyev shal Hekdesh lo tzis lo pidyon. Can't have enough from Hekdesh without redeeming it first. Ulochlo. Yeah, liftos ulochlo. On the other hand, what if you do redeem it? How do you redeem Hekdesh? You pay. Oh, that's no good. Why can't you pay for it? Trick question. Well, not that you're having an of Shemitah, you're allowed to have an of Shemitah, but rather the problem is that you're not allowed to buy Shemitah fruit outright. You can only buy it in a roundabout way. You can't buy Shemitah fruit. So how are you going to be poted this fruit? That's the Gemara's kasha. This is a big problem. If there's Hekdesh, if there's Shemitah in Hekdesh fruit, so how can you redeem the Hekdesh fruit during Shemitah? You have to buy it, and buying is you're not allowed to buy. It's like buying an axe with Shemitah money, which is forbidden. In other words, you're not allowed to do Mekach or Menkar with Shemitah. Amarle, so he said, you know what, the pshat is like this. Ha-gizbar machlivo bi'ad acher. The gizbar, the treasure, redeems the fruit from its hekdesh, and then they give it away. You can't sell it. You're right. Yeah, unless you do it in aroma, like you sell the box and not the esrog like we do. But you can't sell the esrog. You can't sell the fruit itself. So the gizbar's got to redeem it, and then they have to get rid of the fruit as a gift. Okay? So then, in order not to transgress the avera of buying and selling Shemitah fruit. Why don't we say like that which Rabbi Yochanan said named Rabbi Yossi? Let's say there's halacha. Sometimes it can't make something heifer because there's a neder which preceded it. Not germane for us now to know exactly what it is. But here too, let's say it became Shemitah before it became Hekdesh. And therefore there should be no issue of Hekdesh here. Why do we assume that this fruit is Hekdesh? Let's say it's not Hekdesh. See here the yeah, it's really a statement. It's not a kasha. Well, it is a kasha. Why don't we say this answer? Let's say this answer that the taka, there's no shmita vis-a-vis, there's no hektish here in this case because the hefker of shmita takes off the law of hektish. Period. Rabbi Yochanan said it's a rhetorical question, but to say we could have given this as an answer. Rabbi Yochanan said Maisa is a Maisa for Rabbi Yossi, where they passed in like Rabbi Yossi. There was no hektish. They said shmita takes away hektish. There's no hektish in such case. Rabbi Yochanan. Now, new issue. It said in our Mishnah that when you pass by a standing trellis vine, then you can't go back whenever you can't stretch your hand back. When it's a vine on the ground, then the moment you pass, even you can still stretch your hand back, it's already considered to be shikha. So as Gemara leis hada pli Rabbi Yochanan doesn't this argue Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan became every man or a razor shikha. It says once you pass from it by regular grain, by regular tree, by a zayis, by an olive tree, it says once you pass from it, it's a razor shikha. So here too, why do you have the right to stick your hand back? Shani Ori Shadarko Livchon. Oris is different. Since it's a standing tree, you've checked back and double check it. That's the normal derech. So therefore you have the right to go back as long as you're not an arm breadth away. Says Mar Vafilu Rabbi Yosha Lesa Plige. What about the last case? The case about the one which is on the ground. Isn't that argue Rabbi Yosha? So Rabbi Yosha Mar Rameso Isim Rabbi Chia Zaisim. I was harvesting olives. In Rabbi Chia, go to with Rabbi Chia. Varmally, he said, "Kol zayshat yochol livshad yodach v'litlo." Anytime you can stretch out your hand and get an olive, ain't no shikha. So the sefer of our Mishnah says that by a grapevine on the ground, you can't stretch back your hand and get it. It's a kasha, right? Because there it says that you can't stretch back your hand and get it all. And over there by an olive tree, we said you can't stretch back your hand. Says Mar Shani here it's different. She called ruglias, omen bifni atzmo. The ones which grow on the ground, they're so widespread. The grapevines which grow on the ground. I'm city slicker. I don't know what this looks like, but they're so broad that they're considered to be rows on their own. Where did Rabbi Yosha say you can stretch your hand back? If you're in an olive tree, and you see an olive on the tree somewhere else, you can stretch your hand back and get it, even though you passed it already. But here, not when you left the row, to go back to a row. And here it's like going back to a row you already passed, that you're not allowed to do. Okay? Hajjalo Kozai. Let's just go to the bottom page because we have to finish the Masechta tomorrow night. And it's, we're running behind. When is everybody allowed to take leket? Once the old man on canes have passed through the field. By parent olos, once Aniyim made 2 passes through the vineyard. In olives, once the second rain on the 23rd of Mar Cheshvan has fallen. But after that time, the Aniyim have given up by each of these commodities, and anybody can take them. Some people only harvest after the second rain. It's when the oni goes and comes back. Can only bring from the shikha 40 sorrows worth of olives, which is a very small amount. Rabbi Yochanan said, why are they called those who come the nemushos? Shem bos because they come at the end. It's like the tardy ones. Because they use canes to feel their way. He's tani nemushos. There's some rights would say nemusos. He's tani meshushos. Some say meshushos. Ma'adamar nemushos. Here says nemushos. Shei boy so because they come at the end. Ma'adamar meshushos. Shei mashi boy because they come as canes. Rabbi Chuna b'shem Menachem and b'shem Menachem, Yochanan and Nuri both said. They both said that Rabbi Chuna and b'shem Menachem said that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Yotzim and Nemushas to go out with the old men at the end of the day, but he was such a big tzaddik that would get a bracha that in collecting with them, maybe Parnasasa Shakalat Shana, he'd bring enough grapes for himself for the entire year, enough whatever produce it was. Tani we learned, Matanas Anim Shabasada, Shein Anim Makmin Alam, once the Anim have passed over and they don't care anymore. Haresh Ba'abais gets to take them. Right? Bun Barachia Boy asked, how can you say this? The Yeshalam Kori Shem Peah Latzmo. Can a person call Peah for himself? But it's like he's taking Peah, his own Peah. How is he allowed to do that? Tani Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Yochai said, Laniv Lagert Azovasam. It says you should leave the matonos for poor people or strangers, not for ravens and bats. So if the anim have given up, you can go and take it. Prepared those chulei veloti and the mushos. Why prepared those doesn't say the old man that they drag their feet? Because they don't. Even the old man for grapes, for wine, they come as soon as possible. They don't drag their feet, they come quickly. So they all come in the first wave, there are no waves. Azaysim Mishateri Vlotin and Mushas. Why does it say when the old men come and drag their feet? The old men don't come out in Cheshvan. It's already rainy. They're not going to come during the rainy season. So therefore all there are young men coming to collect olives. As the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda says, wait a minute. Rabbi Yehuda says that when the Ani goes and comes back, which sounds like even before Revi'ah Shniyah, and which means whenever Anim go and come back once in the olive field, in the olive orchard. Wait a minute. But he didn't start harvesting yet. You say you don't start harvesting until after the second rain. So it's theft for the Anim to go before. How can you say when the Anim go and come back? So it says more b'shitosin shivon. He's responding to the shitosim. He said, I hold. The truth is that whenever he starts harvesting, once through and back, then everybody else can come in because the Anim give up after that. But l'shitaschem, b'sha'atem orim ne'shu'tzina, that you say since it's cold, ein yotzim el b'achurim, only the young people go out. Mitoch shu yodeh she'ena me'evi parnasas avur ne'yotzei. Says more, even the young, says Rabbi Yehuda, even the young people don't go out already. Because since it's so late in the year and there's so little to take, so therefore nobody goes out that late. So therefore he says the parameters have nothing to do with time of year, with the rains. Rather, the parameters have to do with when once the Anim have gone through and come back after a harvest, that's when everybody else can go in and take the olives. We'll stop here for this evening.